Woke up alive again. Here we are. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to start my day off doing this because I thoroughly enjoy this. I think there's a dog knocking at the door. Hold on. Hey, you coming in? All right. Adventure dog had a real loud elk bone this morning. So I put it out in the shop for her to chew on. And she heard me start to talk here. I guess she needs to be part of the show. Laying at my feet. Anyway, yeah, it's raining again. Holy cow, we had 2 days of sun. I mean, I'll fish in the rain all day. I don't care, but not really into it. Got some stuff to do. So, quick note. I was working in here yesterday, and I got a little TV right here. Not television, but a screen hooked up to the internet, and I play the odd podcast or whatnot on there while I'm working away, and video caught my attention. I don't remember the name of the guy or the channel, but I guess he travels around all over the place and he'll do a spooky night camping where there's Sasquatch sightings, and you'll go out and walk up a trail or shit in the dark and leave an apple on a stump overnight and then get freaked out, put spooky music through the video, and then that's it. Talk to a couple people. But what caught my attention, I don't normally watch that shit, especially if there's spooky music. I'm out. But what caught my attention was he was on Vancouver Island. And he's just right over here. One place he went and spent the night was at Nimth Lake. And I have a history at Nimth Lake. And I'm going to share with you what I know firsthand from Nimth Lake. I have before, but probably over 100,000 subscribers ago. And this guy went there. I guess he met somebody named Cameron who hunted around there. Showed him how to get up the end of some logging road. And I guess he heard some knocks and weird sounds in the background while he was there. But I wonder if this Cameron is listening to my channel. And if you are, throw me an email at sharemystory@hunt.com and you'll see what you know. I'd be interested to hear what happened to you and what you know about that area. But anyways, allegedly this guy, Cameron from here, was in his SUV or something, or Jeep or whatever, Wagoneer, whatever it was, sleeping in it up there above Nimth Lake to go hunting. And he said he woke up in the middle of the night and there was a female Sasquatch with her hands on either side of her face against his window looking in at him. And then apparently he jumped out, grabbed his gun, jumped out of the vehicle and vanished. So it caught my attention. But I know of a lot of things going on. I have a mental note of where these people probably are all the time. It's just a mental note I keep in my head. So I've been doing that all my life with all game and hunting and all my spots. And Nimth is a fairly hot area, but there's a lot hotter areas further in other zones. But Nimth Lake is definitely a 100% frequented area. But anyway, so here I am. I'm a boy. I don't even remember how old I was. I must have been in I don't know. It was a long time ago. I was probably in grade, grade 5 or something like that. It was before my parents split up, right around then maybe. I don't know. Anyway, my dad's friend had a float plane. And back in the day, you could only fly by float plane or hike into Nimth Lake. And it was not logged, no roads. Just first growth, huge timber hills on either side, steep lake, long lake. And they had an old cabin in there. And it was, all I remember is it was fairly steep shot up a bit of a steep drop gravel shoreline. Because there's a lot of rocky shoreline on that side of the lake, and that would be the south side of the lake. And I believe we were about 3/4 the way up the lake from the drain. So that would put us 3/4 up the lake to the west end on the south side. And I remember I'm the only one that really loved fishing. And because we flew in with my dad, his friend's son, flew in, and they already had a small aluminum boat in there. They'd flown in with a small outboard motor on it. And they had also discovered an A-frame cabin on the north side of the lake. And probably about halfway If I remember correctly, it was halfway back the lake towards the drain in the timber. A-frame cabin, and a big mature tree had fallen onto it and caved in the roof. And I remember my dad and his friend would fly in there. His friend more my friend. My dad was an outdoor guy at all. And I guess my dad's buddy was trying to fix up the cabin. Okay? Follow me. So here's my mom, full city girl, not into camping, not into any of that shit. Well, I'll never forget this, because I'll never forget the reaction and the story my mom told me back then. And later on, and I don't forget anything. And then later on in life, I remembered her telling me this, and the passion and the terror she had when she told us this. And so another time, anyways, let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. So here I am. I'm a boy, maybe grade 5. I love fishing, obviously. So my dad, his friend, and his friend's son are just sitting in the cabin. I think it might have been raining. I don't know. And I go down I remember we were about maybe one big cedar tree in the forest before I had to go out the cabin to the right, go down, hit this little plank onto a log and a couple planks. Just a shanty type little dock. Barely a dock. And I remember seeing a little trout that big underneath it. Crystal clear water. And I'm casting, but I vividly remember being freaking terrified. I don't know why, I just remember going like this. I remember that from grade 5 and not having a clue about any of this reality that was really going on today and at the time. Not a clue. I don't remember. Nobody would have said anything either. So I remember I was shitting my pants. I remember that. Because they were like, I'll just go down and fish at the dock. Full view of the cabin. Shit, I remember being so scared. And I remember looking around. It's just big, huge, first growth, massive trees everywhere, dark forested hills, dead silent, And I went down there and forced myself to cast off this little dock. But I remember that feeling today like it happened yesterday. Grade 5. Fast forward. So then, I guess my dad, it was a 4-seater plane. My dad, his friend, my mom, and his friend's wife flew into Nimth Lake. And my mom and the other lady stayed in that same cabin. And my dad and his friend jumped in that small aluminum boat, went puttering off to go do some work on that A-frame cabin that was on the other side of the lake and about halfway down, maybe 2/3 of the way down, if I remember correctly. And my mom said, and this is exactly how she delivered it, something huge, absolutely huge, stomped right beside the cabin, right by the cabin. We heard it coming through the forest, and it stomped, boom, 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 in between the back of the cabin and the back, the wall of the mountain. Obviously going the same direction my dad and the other man were in the aluminum boat. What do you think that was? Right? I'll never forget my mom saying how loud it was. I think she may have even said it shook the cabin. Scared the living piss out of the two ladies. They didn't leave the cabin no matter what. They didn't open the door and nothing. They were terrified. And of course, back in the day, you take any city lady, city girl, and put her out in the woods and has the shit scared out of her. Nobody's going to listen and take her serious about anything. I'll never forget that. Anyway, years later, here we are today, and I know of numerous sightings of these people around there and other places not too far from there. And that's why it caught my attention when I heard this guy was going to go stay for the night above Nimth Lake. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll watch this for a minute. And then he mentioned the guy named Cameron, who hunts around there, primarily black-tailed deer, but he also said he's an elk hunter. Meanwhile, elk aren't open there. So I'm guessing maybe he's possibly a First Nations guy. And he said that he slept in his vehicle and woke in the middle of the night to something with his face looking in on him like this. And his name is Cameron. Maybe Cameron's here. Maybe he wants to email in. Let us know what you know about that zone. And I almost was today, I was like, I bet you I could find it. I could probably go find exactly where he parked. And I almost thought about doing that later on today, taking the dog. But I think to do something like that, I'd have to go early. And then I got to think, well, why would I want to do that? I've already been there. Actually, I think I already took you guys there. I took you guys there a couple years ago. I went by myself to Nimth Lake. And there's another cabin on the other side of the lake, fairly new and upkept. I think they call it Blackie's Cabin or something, but I don't think that's the same cabin. I don't think it is, because I remember years later my dad said that once the logging went in, some Boy Scouts or something hiked in there and tore the cabin, got shredded up and shot and demolished. And there's another cabin in there that's called Blackie's Cabin or something, but it's too close to that end, because I remember when we left that cabin to go fishing, I actually went fishing one day with the rods at the sides on a little aluminum boat, and we went up this side of we went up the south side of the lake towards the west end, and there was three, I'll never forget it, there's 2 or 3 guys in hip waders standing in the lake in the mouth, and they held up fish, and I'm pretty sure it was steelhead, but I remember the fish were like this big, and I'm like this going, oh my God. And they had hiked into the lake and were camped at that end of the lake. So, and we would have been able to see those guys from the cabin if it was the same cabin as this Blackie's Cabin that's there. And I know it wasn't. It wasn't that cabin. So there you go. There you go. Nimth Lake. And they are still there. I just don't know if they're there full time or they come through there. And it was the fall when that guy was camping and the elk were rutting up, so who knows. We'll see if this Cameron guy wants to get a hold of me and share what he knows. But anyway, here is a screenshot with something very interesting to share from the channel. I forget what video. This is Rags to Riches is the handle of this person on YouTube. This is what they wrote. I have heard that dogmen can climb trees and so do Sasquatch. I cannot tell you where my husband works because of security rules. It is a large manufacturing building, and the company owns 30 acres around it. They have an employee walking trail that one has to cross a concrete bridge that has lower openings below the top for floodwater runoff from a 12-foot deep drainage ditch full of mostly young sapling trees. Cross the bridge and you are on the start of the path that runs in an odd-shaped loop. Last year at the start of May, my husband found 3 distinct Sasquatch prints that were 17 inches long to the side of the path. He measured them and took pictures. The pictures were laid out like the Sasquatch had slightly moved 1 foot 3 times. On the same day and further along, he found a 16-inch track that had the heel sunk into the wet ground 3 inches. The direction of which this one was traveling was over brush to get into a field where a deer liked to graze. And about a week later, he randomly snapped a picture to show me part of what the area looked like. There crouched was a black dogman that we later found out was a juvenile one. Hold on, I gotta swap screenshot photos here. Later, he found one wolf print in the grassy, muddy area that was 4 inches wide by 5 inches long, complete with pads and claw marks. 61 inches later, he found the corresponding print of its other foot. Oh, and later, when I rechecked that black dogman pic, there is another one, grayish in color with a black mask peering out from behind a tree to his left. Perhaps siblings? He knows that there are both Sasquatch and dogmen out there. His encounter with the Sasquatch was as he got onto the path, and there was an 8-footer just off the path standing in some low brush, 15 feet apart. They just stared at each other in shock for a while. My husband initially said, "Hi." After that uncomfortable stare-off, he turned and continued walking. When he got back to the end of the path, the Sasquatch was gone. This 30 acres runs into miles of woods, fields, and creeks. No houses around, just businesses and manufacturing plants. After a year, we know that both groups rotate in and out of the area. Now the Sasquatch are leaving small stones arranged on a much larger flat rock. Some of these stone arrangements include intentionally placed twigs of various thicknesses and lengths. My husband rearranges them and they do something else afterwards. No Rosetta Stone for what they are saying, though. There you go. Interesting, right? And that was in the comments section. There you go. I wonder how many more people from that manufacturing plant absolutely recognize that description and are hanging out here. I'll bet you there's a few. I'll bet you there's a few. I've had a whole pile of people emailing me in time markings for the video when I was in the woods the other day, and it's just the hair of my body was standing on end. So let's see what people got to say. A lot of people are emailing. A lot. Hi, Steve. Check out the far right distance portion of the screen at the 4:53 mark in the video entitled Wild Day in the Woods for Me Today. There's a small white object that floats among the trees, disappears behind a couple for about 1 second, reappears, then leaves view permanently, pretty much directly behind you. I can't see it again for the rest of the video, so if it didn't move again, it remained behind you during this video. I'm a birder. Unless the distance and flight direction is deceptive, it doesn't appear to me to move like a bird. And it definitely isn't a butterfly. Maybe nothing, but I thought you / the How to Hunt family might want to take a look. Dawn. Alright, Dawn. I don't normally do this, but why not? Let's have a look. Mainly because so many people email me in. Alright, now hold on, let's have a look here.
Wyoming and Nebraska.
Alright, there it goes. Comes from the right, goes behind the trees. It looks like a moth or butterfly to me.
Very remote.
Flying along, tootling along. Not smooth and deliberately controlled like some of these white, bright lights that people are talking about. But there you go. Shared. Alright, here we go. And here's another one. Man, it's starting to rain out there. This is titled Urgent, R-E, Addendum to the Being Behind You, April 4th, 2025. Hey Steve, this is Chuck from Central Pennsylvania. I just want to add to my earlier email where I shared the timestamp of the being behind you. Remember, it's at 9:40. We may want to tell the family to go to 9:35 so your eyes have time to adjust to the screen. When I say 9:40, literally, within a second of that time marker, the being is flying down to the ground. There's only one explanation for the timing, and like I said, so if it wasn't taking its window of opportunity, then what the F was it doing? As far as I'm concerned, I bet a year's income it knew that you were obscuring the camera at that moment, or so it thought. I got the chills just thinking about this. Geez, you're one brave SOB, haha. Anyways, I hope my instructions are sufficient for everyone to see what I saw. Thanks, Chuck from Central Pennsylvania. Okay, Chuck, let's have a look. We are talking the hair is rising. All right, we got an 0 for 2. That was this thing. All good, though. All good. You never know, though, right? You never know. I mean, I have had things literally thrown at me from the bush in the past. Now, who's next? All right, who, excuse me, is next? What do we got here? Yamsay Mountain. Your observation. Hi, Steve. Your observation on the forest going silent is great. I believe you discovered that this is a component of mind speak. When they have your number and are aware of you, they go into mind speak mode, which is like Bose noise cancelling headphones. The subject is then unable to hear all surrounding animals, insects, and environment, so the possible quiet is enabled. The recording devices will still record the immediate surroundings as they are not subject to the electrochemical brain transmission of mind speak. So, the impossible quiet is their frequency change they are initiating. What you discovered makes sense. They hijack your emotions and senses, and this is why even John Rambo feels terror like he has never experienced. With this kind of power, they could even not touch someone and make them so distraught that they suicide themselves, jump off a cliff, etc. This would account for some of the mysterious deaths of hunters and campers. This also leaves no evidence, giving the Mindspeak Forest people total plausible deniability. Investigators don't have a chance. You have all the evidence to make this a working theory. Side note, the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 has vastly superior low-light image quality. The microphone is also superior to the GoPro. Thanks for all you do, Thomas. Okay. Gotcha, man. Who knows? I don't know. That makes sense to me. Because one thing that happened before is when I had that friend of mine elk hunting, and I left. We stalked silently up the road, dead silent, first light in the morning. Stalked up this little deactivated road, looked for bull elk, and then I told him to wait there. Well, I doubled back to go hike back and get the quad, and then quad all the way back up to where we were. I wanted to stalk through there first before quadding, and he heard what he described as a sledgehammer wailing on a tree from the direction of where I was, and said, "Did you hear that? Was that you?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I do not move noisy in the forest when I'm hunting. I don't, and I hear everything. So very odd, right? Very, very odd that a lot of people see some things people don't see while standing right beside them, hear some things that people don't hear. And how can you make a simple human being do that or not do that? Do you know what I mean? How? Very interesting. We'll see what comes. It's a tough thing to try to study, isn't it? It's a tough thing to study. Who's next? This fine rainy morning. A message from Hanzi. Hanzi. Excuse me. Hi, Steve. My name is Hanzi. Contacting you from Cairns, far north Queensland, Australia. I just thought I'd reach out and let you know that I really appreciate your channel. I believe you're providing an invaluable service to those who need their stories to be told. I haven't encountered what might be commonly known as a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. However, I did have a very odd experience when I was in a reserve national park nearby my home at the time. When I was around 6 or 7, I was in a forest with a friend in late afternoon. I heard a very clear voice almost telepathically say to me, "If you stay here any longer, I will take you." It's difficult to describe how I heard it in my head, but it felt like it wasn't coming from me. The voice and a message sent chills down my spine. So I picked up the pace pretty quickly after that experience. I was relieved when I got home. This incident occurred at Palm Beach Nature Reserve Park. There's quite a lot of history regarding Bigfoot in Australia. However, we call them the Yowie. There's a channel on YouTube called Yowie Hunters, which documents cases that occur all over Australia. There was one particular case that occurred in my hometown. I'll leave the link for you to listen to below. Hope you and your family are well, and please keep up with the great work you do in giving the people a voice and platform to share their unique experience. The truth must be told. Yes, it must be told, and it is getting told. In your face told every single day, no matter what. Here, no matter what. Oh, and I got a quick side note. Just tossing it out there to all the Aussie followers here. The young man in the house, he's 21 years old, and he's headed to Australia. We sent him down there in return for taking care of the place while we were gone. I sent him down there for 2 weeks with his friend, and he had a friend there in Noosa working. And loved it. Absolutely loved it. And wanted to go back down there and hopefully find work and explore the country and start his life. You know what I mean? So he's filled out the application for, I guess you can go down there for a year and work. And then after a year, you have to do work on a farm. So his friend is down there, got a job on a farm. And he's looking for work in Australia. All right? Just throwing it out there. If anybody knows of any kind of good direction for the young man, good kid. Real good kid. To head on while down there, it would be greatly appreciated. Maybe email me. All right? Or even throw it down in the comment section below, and we'll pass it off to him and get him on a good start in his adventure. And he's going to be going down there, I think, May, early May, okay? Please and thank you so much to my Australian followers of the channel. All right, here's another one. Dear Steve, I'm one of those guys that has spent thousands of hours in the outdoors hunting and fishing. I'm 62 years old now, but this encounter happened to me approximately 20 years ago in central North Michigan while deer scouting a wilderness area. Let's just say I'm very familiar with all sorts of wildlife, their sign and their vocalizations. I was hiking a remote area and was approximately 2 miles in off a 2-track. I found an oak ridge earlier that spring and wanted to come back early fall to scout the area out for buck sign. This ridge was steep, rolling, and was about a half a mile long. I've been scouting all morning and decided to take a break and drink some water and have a sandwich. I was about 1/3 of the way down from the top of that ridge line, walking a game trail. I had sat down on a deadfall, was sitting there for about 10 minutes when all of a sudden something started screaming at me. It was so close, and it was the most shocking scream I've ever heard while deer hunting at home or out west hunting elk. The only thing I can truly compare it to was witnessing a space shuttle launch. That launch chattered, rumbled right through my body, and it was probably the most awesome thing I ever experienced. The reason I bring this up is the comparison was the same experience. The screams actually rumbled deep inside my chest. Although I never saw what was making the screams, years later I realized I was probably experiencing a Bigfoot encounter. And look, I've been involved in wildlife organizations for many years and have served as a regional director and have no reason to worry about what the idiots have to say. I've never had any other experiences like it, but it was beyond anything we know is normal. Although I wasn't really scared during this encounter, I remember walking away while this thing was letting me know I wasn't welcome there. Well, brother, you can share my story if you'd like, and my name. I don't give a rat's ass what anyone else thinks. May the magic of the whitetail forever enrich your life. Perry Silvio Russo. My friends call me Silvio. And there you go. Another of how many people have experienced the screams, the roars, physically shaking your body. Mark this one as read. Appreciate you sending that in, man. Be safe out there. Really appreciate it. This is titled Kansas City. I've been to Kansas City. Alright, this next one is titled Kansas City. Hi, Steve. My name is blank. Please keep me anonymous if you share. I found your channel about 3 days ago and I haven't stopped watching your videos. My mouth literally dropped while watching some of your videos, and here's why. I've been hunting and fishing since I was a little kid on my parents' land, an hour or so north of Kansas City, Missouri. I'm currently 30. I have an above-ground deer blind built at the bottom of a steep rocky cliff edge overlooking a bean field. This spot is about a 30-minute walk from where I can park my truck. This day was November rifle season of 2015. I park my truck, finish my coffee, hop out, and start the walk to my stand. It's still pitch black outside, and I'm about 10 minutes into my 30-minute walk. I'm coming down the trail almost to the point where I turn off and climb down the steep rocks to get to my stand. That's when I notice the very strong smell of wet dog and spent fireworks. I didn't really think anything of it. I get down the rocks and I'm almost to my stand. It is very quiet, so stagnant you could hear a twig break 200 feet away. Collecting myself, getting ready to finish my walk, I felt something bounce off my backpack. Thinking it was a branch or something, I turned around and saw nothing. And all the hair on my neck stood up and I felt pure anxiety. I looked up the cliffside. I just came down, and just to the right of my trail down was a shadow. A shadow so large I assumed a boulder, until it moved. I was so freaked out. I went to aim my 270 at it, but couldn't move. It felt like 10 minutes. I'm staring at this when it was only a few seconds. It stood up, went over the top of the cliff, and was gone. All I could see was a silhouette, and it must have been 9 to 10 feet tall if I had to guess. I've never forgotten that day, especially the smell. I was so freaked out I started running past my stand across the bean field onto the road that goes up and around to my truck. The walk back took over an hour, I won't lie, and that was the longest, most terrifying hour of my life. Sweating like crazy, head on a swivel, paranoid, scared of any little shadow I saw on the way back. I finally got back to my truck, and I shit you not, my side mirror was broken off. I don't know, man. I told my parents when I got back, and they assumed I was seeing things, and that I ripped my mirror off in the dark driving there. And I know what I saw. I know what I smelt, and I know what I felt. I'm so happy I found your channel and felt like I had to get it off my chest. Stay safe out there, and keep doing what you're doing, Steve. And by the way, I suck at typing out a story, so I apologize for the choppiness. Seems to be typed out perfect to me. Another hunter. So many hunters. You know, it's funny. There's always a lot of people, handful of people, whatever, just people complaining. I can't stand this Bigfoot shit. I liked it better when you told your hunting stories. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, well. You know, oh, well, the How to Hunt channel is dedicated just to hunting and fishing and the stories. You can go jump on that one. But just so everybody knows, we did a poll a while back. And I think it was 79% of the viewers here either hunted and or fished or both. 79%. That means a shit pile of hunters are here avidly listening, as they should be. Right? Who's next? Hello, Steve. My name is... Am I allowed to use your name? Let me go straight to the very end and see if you added in not to use your name. All right, here we go. I'm going to read your name. Hello, Steve. My name is Kyler. And I've lived in Arizona pretty much my entire life. I've gone camping in the mountains and in the deserts of Arizona more times than I can count since my childhood. I started rifle and archery hunting in northern Arizona about 20 years ago and never really had anything out of the ordinary happen to me on any of my trips in the wilderness, except one time I was archery hunting in Unit 12A north of the Grand Canyon. It was September 2007 and I was with a few of my friends who were also hunting. I had hunted that area for about 6 years in a row, was with the same group of friends, and I was starting to get a little frustrated because it seemed like I was the only one out of the whole group that was never getting any shots at any bucks. Well, this particular year, 2 of my friends were able to each get a buck out of the same tree stand. So they told me to climb up into the stand and told me that I'd probably get a chance to finally getting a buck. So I excitedly climbed up into the stand, and I think it was the first day I was in the stand. And these 2 bucks come running up to the water hole the stand was set up next to. One of the bucks went right to the edge of the water in front of me, and I was finally able to take a shot. But as I drew my bow back, the sound of the arrow sliding on the arrow rest of my bow caused the deer to look straight at me. And I didn't know what to do, so I froze for a second out of inexperience. And after a couple of seconds in this frozen state, I decided that I wasn't going to be able to stay in this position very long with my bow half drawn, so I quickly drew my bow back the rest of the way and shot. But missed, just over the buck's back. I couldn't believe it. I was so upset with myself. My friends and I would target practice for a couple months before this hunt every year, and I was the best shot out of all of them. And when I finally get a shot at a deer, I miss. I used a rangefinder to a bunch of different locations around the waterhole from the tree stand, and the spot that deer was standing was only 14 yards from where I was sitting. I couldn't believe it. So the whole rest of the day and the next morning, I was beating myself up about what I could have done better and how much I couldn't believe I missed such an easy shot and so on. Anyway, the next morning I climbed up the tree stand again, still bummed out, and I'd been sitting up there for about 2 hours. When, much to my surprise, another buck came trotting right up to the exact spot I had missed the other buck the day before. Armed with the knowledge from my experience the day before, I pulled back and shot. My arrow passed through the deer. He ran about 50 yards where he fell over and died. I was so excited I got the chance to redeem myself. I couldn't wait to tell the guys back at camp. So I backed my truck up to where the deer was. I pulled him into the truck bed and headed off down the road, as I didn't want to leave a fresh gut pile next to the tree stand and water hole in case one of the other guys in my group that hadn't filled their tag yet wanted to try their luck in the stand. I drove back to where our camp was located, which had a little 2-track road that led up the hill past our camp, off the main dirt road, and I decided that taking that road to the top of the hill a ways past our camp would be a good place to clean out my deer. So I drove up this little road a ways and stopped and pulled the deer out of my truck and started to gather my knife and water and other stuff that I would need to clean out this deer when all of a sudden I got this creepy feeling like someone or something had their eyes on me. I've never felt that kind of hair-raising feeling before or since while being out in the forest. I immediately stopped what I was doing and started looking very intently at the surrounding tree lines all around me as I was basically in the middle of a clearing. I saw nothing. At the time, I just thought it was a mountain lion or a bear or something like that caught my scent of the dead deer and was waiting for me to leave so I could have a free meal. So just as a precaution, I grabbed my Springfield 1911 Model 45, 1911 Model 45 out of my truck and kept it with me while I was cleaning out this deer, always making sure there was nothing sneaking up on me while I was working. I finished cleaning out the deer without incident, loaded it back into my truck, and drove back to camp and hung the deer in a tree. Excuse me. I kind of put that creepy feeling out of my mind until later that same day, I was in camp by myself. The other 2 guys I was with were still out hunting, and it was getting dark, and they weren't back yet. So I decided to build a fire. The sun went down, it was pitch black out, and I was standing next to the fire when I got that same feeling again. Something watching me. Again, the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I was doing my best to stare past the fire to try and see what I could in the forest with the firelight at what it might be that is staring at me. But again, nothing. So as I was staring into the forest, kind of scared at this point, the logs in the fire decided to shift and fall, which almost made me crap my pants. It scared me so bad. And I laugh about that now because it sounds like some stupid scene from a cheesy horror film, but I swear it happened like that. And like I said at the time, I thought it might have been a bear or mountain lion wanting to get at my deer, but was too afraid to come any closer. But watching your channel and hearing other people's stories about getting that terrible feeling like someone or something's watching them, I most definitely think it was probably a Sasquatch, even though I never actually saw anything. I wish I lived closer to that area because I'd like to set up some trail cameras in that area more for my own informational gathering purposes as opposed to trying to prove anyone else, because I know there are people out there that are always going to be naysayers no matter how much evidence you put in front of their face. And I'm sure I'm guilty of being one of those people a time or two in my life, so I try not to judge too harshly. I do still like to spend time in that area, the forest in Arizona. It's my favorite place to hunt and camp, but I don't get to do too much of that up there because it's an 8 to 9 hour car ride one way just to get up there. So I don't get to visit there as often as I'd like. It's also fairly difficult to get drawn for a tag to hunt that area as well. Thanks for taking the time to read my email, and I truly hope and pray to be able to take a guided hunting trip with you up there in British Columbia. I'd love to visit there sometime. It looks like beautiful country. Sincerely. Okay, man. Gotcha. It must have been a pretty intense feeling for you to be knee-jerked to writing in about it, right? We weren't there, but like I said before, when people write in just about hearing or feeling something, it's got to be substantial to stay with you and motivate you to write about it, right? Although it may not sound like too much to your average listener. But I always take that into account. What is this? Okay. This is titled Bama. Hi, I hope you and yours are well. My name is D, and I asked for my name not to be published as I'm a paramedic and I need to be discreet due to my career. I like your rifle. What model and caliber? Montana, custom-built Montana 300 short mag. Lefty. While deer hunting some years ago, I thought I saw something in central Alabama, and definitely heard a possible Sasquatch just a few minutes apart. Our deer here are barely larger than a Great Dane, and I had a Ruger Mini 14 and 223 Remington caliber with me. I was 14, so it was in 1984. It was last hour of shooting light. Late one December. I was sitting on side of a hill watching a holler that was a path between a bedding area and a small creek. I saw intermittent movement across on the other side about 100 yards or so. It bobbed up and down as if it was stepping up, then down. I didn't hear or smell anything and wrote it off as a cow, as it was reddish-brown. It soon went into a thick patch to my right and disappeared from view. It was sunset. Shooting light was fading, so I got up, stretched, and started towards the fence in the pasture about 50 yards from me. Then this thing howled long. About 5 seconds. That rifle suddenly seemed to be little more than a Red Ryder BB gun. The howl about made me shit myself, and I expeditiously beat feet with alacrity. It sounded about 75 yards from me in a thick holler. After running about 100 yards into the open pasture, I felt at ease for some reason, and I walked on home while looking at the tree line, hoping to see whatever it was. And since that day, I will not go into the woods without my scoped 30-06 and partition loads. I told my dad, and he told me a hoot owl ran me out of the woods. Nuh-uh, it wasn't any owl. Sorry for the long email. I really enjoy your videos, and I love the scenery. Okay, man, appreciate you. Central Alabama. It's funny, when I was at my friend's last spring, I heard something pop in the bush, but there's so many hogs around and everything, but I heard a branch snap. And they got a pile of acreage, and they're pretty remote where they are on the sticks. I'll be back there pretty soon. I'm going to share one more. Hello, Steve. I first want to say thank you for being a source of honest information for people like myself. My story is really recent. It happened just 4 days ago on Halloween, no less. Okay, this is older email. I was blacktail hunting in the Yacolt Burn State Forest in Washington State. I borrowed my pop's binoculars for this season, and 2 days prior I knocked one of the rubber eye cups off and lost it somewhere out there. I was really pissed about it because they were an old pair of Steiners, and I doubted I would ever find a replacement. Anyway, I crawled in before first light on the old access roads, up to one of my favorite areas to hunt. I was after a big for my area, four-pointer, who was past his prime, has been shrinking since at least last year. I was still hunting in the timber next to an old clear cut where I almost always see deer. And after a while I realized that I hadn't seen or heard anything for about an hour. It was probably around 1 p.m. at that time, so I just stopped to eat. Just in the shadows on the edge of the clear cut. I was just about to get back up after eating when I heard a knocking from across the clear cut, and instantly the hair on the back of my neck stood up. After a few minutes, the knocking started from behind me as well, but much closer, probably 30 yards, and that scared me shitless. So I stood up and turned around to get out of there, and right in front of me, just about 20 yards away, was one of these creatures. It was huge. Dark gray hair all over, and probably 500 pounds. Before I could even shoulder my rifle, it stuck its arm out and dropped something, then turned and ran away from me. And that's when I noticed 2 more creatures behind the first, who turned and ran as well. The other ones had the same colors and were roughly the same size. I was frozen for about 5 minutes, not wanting to move, because my truck was exactly where they had run. Eventually I decided to get out of there, so I started back to the truck. I went over to where the creature stood to see what it had... I went over to where the creature stood to see what had dropped, and I shit you not, on the moss at my feet was the eyepiece to my pop's binoculars. Holy shit, no way. And I absolutely believe you. Trust me. I know it sounds crazy, but that thing brought it back to me. What the hell? Hey? You're the first person I've told this to, because before seeing these things for myself, I would never have believed a word of this story. I grew up in the area right next to Battleground Lake, 5-ish miles from where I was, and had never experienced these people before. People, he said, people. I know the story's crazy, but I also know what I saw, and it was not human. If you do choose to share this, please don't use my name. I'm only 21 years old, and I'm studying to be a lawyer currently. And before you judge me too hard for joining the ranks of the other spineless shitbag lawyers, I just want to say we desperately need more good, honest people in these positions. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I honestly believe if some of the people above me right now associated my name with a story, it could really hurt my future. Oh, I get it, man. My question for you is this. Do you think it is safe or wise for me to go back to that area? I'm effing terrified by what I saw. But at the same time, they basically helped me out by bringing back the lost piece of the binoculars. So I don't know what to think of them. I already missed the rest of my season and did not punch my tag this year because I've been too scared to go back out there. Anyway, thank you again for what you do for people like me. I'd probably be convincing myself I'm crazy right now if I hadn't come across your YouTube channel and heard other stories. Sorry for the long email, but there is my story. I know what I saw, and I won't be convinced otherwise at this point. If you find this compelling enough to share, please do, but please don't say my name if you can help it. And there you go. Right, you guys? That's in a way, I mean, that's a feel-good one for me, only because this person was all by themselves, young, not having a clue, would have laughed at his own story had he heard it previously. And thank God he found all of us here, right? To assure him he's okay, not alone. It happens to a lot of people. Wow, what a frickin' experience that was. You're still listening to the channel. You know what I wouldn't mind hearing from you would be more of a detailed description of that gray. Those gray people standing there looking at you. Like the face, you know what I mean? The look on his face. How fast they ran. Did they speak? They say, oh, let's get out of here. He's going to start shooting. You know what I mean? How freaking crazy is that? But it just goes to show you guys, I mean, I've known this for a long time, only because of my own experiences, not because of what people have told me, but from what I've experienced. These people, these beings, they're watching us all the time. They're watching. They know. Do they read our minds all the time? I don't know. I mean, I can't dictate that to the world because I don't know for sure. I can only speculate and guess, but for the most part, from what a lot of people claim, but more importantly, how a lot of people are reacted to before they move or do something or think something, it seems like it's possibly very probable that they know your intentions and they are possibly reading your thoughts. Right? Sounds crazy, I know, but how do you deny it at this point unless you just want to be an ostrich? Right? Jam your greasy head in that hole and keep it there. Pretend it's not going on. Not me. Not me. Well, yeah, if you're still hanging out, man, and if you feel like it one day, email me back and see if you can run me through a few more of, a little more detailed in the description of that face, the expression on his face. If they spoke to each other, what the other faces look like, you know what I mean? How fast they ran. That'd be interesting. Just to put a little more colors of paint to the picture painted, you know what I mean? But anyway, there you go. Crazy, right? This is such a crazy frickin' lifetime. Holy shit. What a crazy, wild ride. Actually, maybe it's just the more the crazy wild ride for me is just becoming aware and learning more and more and learning truth. That's the wild ride. Holy shit. Don't you think? Anyway, there you go. More voices heard. It's endless. It's never going to end. If it wasn't true, it would end because people get tired of it wouldn't be fun anymore to make up bullshit stories. It's already been done a bunch of times. There's nothing exciting anymore. Right? Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get it heard word for word, no matter what. You're safe here. You found your people. You don't want your name shared. We understand and get it. And you'll be respected, right? You'll be respected here no matter what. Unless, of course, you bring disrespect. Then you get gobbled up and shit out real quick. What else? That's about it. Any of our friends in Australia, if you have any helpful information on how this young man can get some part-time work or some exciting, fun work somewhere to meet some great, fun people and kick off his new great adventure in life, that'd be really appreciated if you'd email that to me or even possibly throw it down in the comment section below. I believe he's Brisbane. Brisbane is where they flew into. And they went up to Noosa. He's got a friend working on a farm somewhere around there. But anyways, that'd be really helpful if anybody can throw us a bone. I'll pass that on. And I will be back tomorrow. No matter what. Hopefully. See you later. I believe I'm getting that video. Duck down, crawl beside me, duck down. So powerful.